Welcome to the Value Stuff Podcast. I am your host, Dan Glazier. I am a personal property appraiser and I value stuff for a living. So today I want to talk about a subject. I don't know, is it sexy or not? There's that show Storage Locker War, Storage Wars. And I guess some people, love that show and love storage lockers and stuff. But guess what? I am not a fan of storage lockers. And I'm going to tell you why. Don't get me wrong, storage lockers have their place. And for me, it's about short term. And what do I mean by short term? I mean under 3 months, under 6 months at the most. And I've come across a lot of people that they'll call me and stuff's in storage. And literally sometimes stuff's been in storage for years and it's cost people thousands of dollars. So in this podcast here, I'm trying to save you thousands of dollars and try and stop you from putting stuff in storage unless you have to. I got 3 stories that I want to talk about, and it's they're extreme. So before I get into it, again, I think storage lockers have their place short term. Again, if you're downsizing or moving, and maybe you're in between places and you need to put stuff for a few months, I think they're great. If you, commercially, if you need to supply or you need to have extra tools or supplies, I think they're great if you're using it a lot and you're going there. But I think in most cases when it's household goods, people kind of put stuff in storage lockers and they forget about it. So there's one thing that I do know as I'm getting older: days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, months turn into years, years turn into decades. And that's why I want to talk to you about some stories about storage lockers. So if you're thinking of putting stuff in storage lockers or you have stuff in storage lockers, maybe this will motivate you to either, get the stuff out of the storage lockers or think twice and maybe downsize your stuff or do something with it before you put them in storage lockers. So let me get started on story number 1. So story 1. Okay, craziness. This was probably the most money I've ever come across someone spending on a storage unit. So I got this call. This lady called me and she's like, we have stuff. It was my parents. We've kind of inherited it. It's been in storage and we just want you to let us know what it's worth and, what we could sell it for, type of thing. So I said, sure. So I met them at the storage unit. We opened it up. It was a huge storage unit. The reason it was a huge storage unit, the stuff was massive. And it was only a giant bedroom suite and a giant dining suite. It was, sort of Rococo Mediterranean style and, lots of curves, dark kind of oak sort of finish. It was really well made, great materials, great quality, but it was so out of style, out of date, out of fashion. And so, I looked it over. It was in great condition. It was well made. It wasn't made in China and stuff. It was definitely just handcrafted, beautiful stuff, but dated. And on really simple terms, it's stuff nobody wants. So I gave them my opinion on value, which was under, I think, a couple $1,000s, which the people probably even, whatever this stuff was, 40, 50 years old, they probably even paid more than that then. And I just said that I'm giving you a value, but you're going to have a really hard time selling this stuff. And you know what? She was very happy with an answer because they needed some closure in this stuff. So I kind of said, kind of like, how long's it been in storage? And she's like, my parents moved it here in the 90s. And then I almost fell down because in my mind, I have one of those, minds where numbers are always going all over. And I'm like, okay, I think she mentioned to me she's paying somewhere between $400 and $500 a month. And then let's say 5,000 or so a year times over 20 years, maybe over 30 years. And if you do the math, they'd paid over $100,000, maybe up to $150,000 just in rent, just in like fees for this storage locker. And I'm like, wow, they're even going to have a hard time giving this stuff away. And even the charities, it's too big for charities in most cases. So that's a story there. I just want to let you know that's crazy. What, over $100,000? That's story number one. Story number two is different circumstances. This was this is back when we had our store, and we would buy and sell complete households and contents. And I was the appraisal and purchasing manager, and we used to specialize in buying, everything top to bottom in a house. So I get this call. There's a gentleman. He told me, he goes, "I'm moving overseas. I got a contract for 12 months. I have a brand new stacked modern townhouse, and I just bought all this furniture for it. But the market's high. I'm selling my townhouse, and when I get back, I'll buy something else or I'll rent something else. But the people don't want to buy the furniture off me." So I said, fine. So I came in and looked at all the furniture, and I loved it. It was all designer, all ultra modern. Most of it was from Italy. Lots of leathers and just great glass. It was great stuff, and I wanted it for our store so bad. And I offered them much more than I should have, just because I wanted it, because it would have been great for marketing. I put on our Facebook group and Twitter. I'm so excited, and I made him the offer, and he said no. And I was like, okay. And I understood, because he paid a crazy amount of money for this furniture. And, he had a bit of sentimental, because paid a lot. Sentimental isn't just sentimental. Money can make us sentimental sometimes. So he just said, "I'm just going to put it in storage. It's just fine. It's just, nothing, my feelings weren't hurt. That's, it's just business." So I don't know how much longer it was, 5 years. He called me, and he said, "I'm not sure if you remember who I am." And I did remember, because I remember the furniture, because it was great furniture. And he said, "I'd like you to, could you meet me at my storage facility? And I want to sell it to you now." So we went there, and the one thing about ultra modern, it has it's not ultra modern. 2 years later, it's not ultra modern. 3 years later, it's not ultra modern. And 4 or 5 years, they're definitely not ultra modern. It just becomes, sort of modern furniture. It's not ultra modern anymore. So, and I wasn't as keen anymore, because it wasn't like the latest fashions to have it in my store. So I made him an offer, which was much less than I initially offered him. And he was really happy. He said, "That's great. When can you pick it up?" So my guess is the new place he had wasn't, he didn't want to take that stuff there, or it didn't fit, or what. I don't know the exact reason. But what I do remember is he kind of looked at me with this kind of shy grin look, kind of lowered his voice, and he said, "I should have taken your initial offer." And, I didn't want him to eat crow or anything like that. I'm not, no ego there. But to me, it wasn't about, taking the offer, not taking the offer. To me, it was what I estimated what he paid in storage, because his storage, it was all house. It was huge storage. So let's just say on the low end, he paid $1,200 to $1,000 a month. He's gone, I think it's 4 years. It was anywhere between 3 and 5. So let's just say 4. He paid easily over $50,000 in storage fees. So that's just another extreme case of storage. So over $100,000, and then over 50,000. I got one more, and this is more recent, to do with an estate, and this one is around 40,000. I'll explain the numbers in a bit. So I got a call for an estate. They're like, we need you to appraise all the household contents. It's all in a storage locker. It's for an estate, and I'm not buying it. This is just for probate, just to appraise it. So I went and looked at all the stuff. And the reason I want to tell you about this one, this is just regular, everyday stuff, from an estate, older stuff, stuff, 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, and just regular, everyday stuff. And the whole storage unit, I think everything's probably going to be under $4,000 as the appraisal. I can't remember the exact number, but it wasn't a lot. And he said, he mentioned to me, he said, "This stuff's been here for 8 years." And I was like, 8 years? And the background of that is his mom had gone into long-term care facility, they didn't really deal with the contents at that time. They just put it in storage, and then they're like, we'll deal with it, whatever, in a few months. Well, again, a few months turned into years, which turned into 8 years. 8 years at $400, and add tax. You're over $5,000 a month times 12, or I mean times 8. We're at whatever, and it cuts. Sorry, the math comes out to it's over 40,000. It's about $40,000 they spent. So it's crazy. So 400 times 12 is 48. Tax, that's the 5. Then times by 8. There's your $40,000. But I'm like, it just blows me away. And this isn't, it's not just once or twice that these are just 3 kind of very different stories of large amounts, but I deal with this all the time. I even have a friend of mine who I met at her storage locker. She wanted to pay me to help her organize everything. And I said, I won't charge you, but I looked at it. And it was just stuff. It was just a whole locker full of crap, because she went from a huge house to a condo, and her condo was even fairly big. And I just talked to her. I said, you have to deal with this stuff, because it's costing you, $500-600 a month. And I could tell it's not stuff she had some kind of attachment to it, but it's not stuff she really wanted. So that's why I'm not a fan of storage lockers. Short term, yes, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, or if you're moving or something, you have a plan for it. You have to have a plan. That's, if you get anything from this podcast today about storage, if you're going to put stuff in storage, have a plan, and if have a timeline on it. And you're like, if I haven't dealt with it by this amount of time, then I'm just going to donate it, sell it, whatever I need to do. But again, don't let those weeks turn into months, those months turn into years, because all of a sudden it turns into 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 plus thousands of dollars. So it's sort of, I'm not a minimalist, and I like my stuff that I have, but, don't let stuff financially, I'm not going to say ruin. I don't want to go extreme with that, but, there's a lot better things we can do with our money, investing it, all different things, than just paying storage fees of stuff we really don't want. And I guess that's the whole thesis of this. Almost all these people think it's important stuff, but then when they finally have to deal with it, it's not important stuff. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening. This podcast today on storage lockers. Not a fan. Short term, a bit of a fan. Not a fan of storage lockers long term. Figure out a plan, so hopefully you don't have to put stuff in storage and it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Thank you so much. I'm Dan Glazier, Value Stuff Podcast. Please subscribe and share. We're on YouTube now. Yay, woohoo. We're on all the other podcast hosts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Dan Glazier, the Value Stuff Podcast. Take care.